This is Fireside Chat with me, Johnny B. Hey, good morning and welcome back, everybody. It's Tuesday morning. Thank you for tuning in and joining us. Today, we have an incredible story. We have Army veteran Kenny Thomas on the line with us today. He's dialing in by phone. And he has just a beautiful story of how Christ came into his life and helped him in a moment of urgency, in a moment of darkness, and just was able to walk him back into a deeper relationship with the Father and just redeem everything that happened to him and bring him back and allow him to have a full and fruitful life in relationship with him. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce you guys to Army veteran Kenny Thomas. Welcome. Good morning. Thank you for calling in.
Hey, good morning, John. Thank you for having me.
Indeed. So you joined the Army, right out of high school?
Yeah, I went to my graduation day. I actually went to METS to get sworn in. And
wow.
I didn't leave
that quick, huh?
Yeah, I always knew I wanted to be in the.
Okay. So where did you grow up?
I grew up in a small town in North Alabama called Coleman. It's right in the middle of it's between Birmingham and Huntsville. It's a little small town. I grew up on a chicken farm.
Okay. So growing up on a chicken farm in northern Alabama, how did that take you into joining the Army?
My uncle was in the National Guard. I remember, so like on, I think, 4th of July, stuff like that, my uncle would come back. He'd bring stuff back from his drill, like grenade simulators and all this other stuff. And we'd get to blow stuff up, and we'd play Army. And I did that all my life growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So I always knew I wanted to join the military. When I was 17, I tried to join the National Guard to the split ops, where you go to basic during the summer before your senior year, and you do your training, your advanced training after you graduate. But I was on Accutane, medication for acne, so they wouldn't let me in. So I decided
wait. They wouldn't let you in. The Army, of all branches, would not let you in because you were on medication for acne?
Yep. It was Accutane. It makes your skin too sensitive to the sun.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yep. But they wouldn't let me in. So coming towards graduation, I talked to the recruiters. I decided to go big Army, go full Army instead of National Guard, and ended up joining the infantry.
Oh, wow. So you had all kinds of fun with that. You're going from a kid that was blowing things up in the backyard to being able to blow things up in a big field.
Yep.
What kid doesn't want that, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, the recruiter had me. He showed me people jumping out of airplanes and helicopters and playing Army. I was like, that's what I want to do there.
That's how they get you. So what year was this, by the way?
This was 2000.
Okay, so right before everything went down.
Yep. Yeah, okay. I finished up in basic in January, got to my unit February of 2001. And when I joined, I had no thought of actually going to war. I just wanted to do my 4 years, get my college money, get out and go to college. But Bin Laden had other things in mind, I guess.
Yeah, I remember that. I wasn't that far before you because I joined. I grew up in Austin, and I graduated in '99. Recruited right after that and went off to basic for the Navy. But same plan. I don't think any of us thought at that point in time that war was going to happen. I mean, we just wrapped up Desert Storm, not even 10 years before that, really. Yep. So we didn't think anything was going to happen when we joined, did we?
I had no thought in my mind about it.
Mm-mm. So you join the Army, you're out there. What was your first unit?
101st Airborne at Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
Okay.
I was with the first of the 187th Reconnaissance, 3rd Brigade.
Okay. So then you're out there, everything's hunky-dory, just doing your thing. September 11th happens.
September 11th. So we were on a 5-mile run that morning with our first sergeant. We came back. We went to the chow hall, grabbed breakfast. I was up in my barracks room, ironing my uniform for the day, getting my boots ready. And I'm watching on TV, and I see I see one of the first buildings get hit with a plane. I thought I was watching something fake, so I turned the channel, didn't think anything about it. And then I went down, reported to my unit. We had morning formation. We got released to go to, I think we were doing, what was it? I can't remember what kind of training we were doing that day. We got released to go do training, and probably within 10 minutes they called us back into our company, back in formation, and said, "Boys, you're going to war." It was like, what? That's when they told us everything, what had happened. And then I was 18. Yeah, I was 18 at the time. I called my mom and said, "I'm going to war. Don't know when, don't know where, but we're going." So we loaded up everything that day, and I want to say we got everything loaded up, and they changed it and said, "We're not leaving yet." So we didn't end up leaving until November.
Mm-hmm.
They flew out and went from Fort Campbell to Pakistan first.
Yeah. Yeah, it was that was a really confusing time back then. It took us a while to figure out necessarily first, who was responsible for what happened. That took a minute. And then from there to figure out how are we going to respond. So yeah, that kind of makes sense that it took a few months for y'all to figure out where you're going.
And to be honest with you, I didn't even know the world had shut down until a few years ago. I was talking to some friends about 9/11 and what had happened. They were telling me schools shut down. Everybody got sent home from work. I said, I had no clue about any of that. I never even thought about that.
Yeah. I mean, overseas, we had no clue. For us, it was like 2 a.m. I was in Guam when that happened. But we had no clue that the rest of the world had shut down. We knew we were because we were on a military facility. And, of course, the threat posture changed. And yeah, that was just a really weird time to figure out what are we doing? How are we going to respond to this? And especially for you guys, being so close, Kentucky's not far away from where everything happened. That had to really rock your boat a little, huh?
Oh yeah. Yeah. We were definitely on lockdown for sure.
Yeah. And just being so close to it. So, you guys, you did your first tour in Pakistan, Afghanistan. Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
So how did that go for y'all?
So we got into Pakistan, and it was not what we were expecting. We were living with the Air Force in tents. Air Force was doing what the Air Force does, living the life. We were in full gear for a while, wondering what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can't remember. All we did there in Pakistan was we pulled guard on the Air Force base. And then I want to say it was in maybe January or February. I can't remember. We flew out of Pakistan into Kandahar to the airport there. We got put up at the airport, and we pulled guard on the Kandahar airfield. And then I want to say Operation Anaconda was the first major operation that my unit was with. My company didn't go. I want to say it was Charlie Company went to Operation Anaconda.
Mm-hmm.
And that one was, they got stuck out there. I can't remember exactly what happened, but I think it was when some of the Navy SEALs got shot out of the back of a Chinook, and I think the Ranger unit went in on a rescue unit. 10th Mountain got jacked up in that fight.
Yep.
Our guys set up blocking positions to make sure nobody got through, attacked them from the rear, but 10th Mountain got shot down in that one.
Yep. Operation Red Wing.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was an operation that we were in. My company wasn't in it, but our unit was in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But to be honest,
that was a weird experience.
Yeah. Well, we knew it was at war. Then it kind of made it feel more like we were at actual war.
Mm-hmm.
Until that, all we did was pull guard, and nobody, like, Afghanistan was an easy tour for us. We actually participated in Operation Mountain Lion, where we got our combat infantryman badges. We were out there clearing caves. I know at one point we had to come up on this cave complex, and we cleared it, made sure nothing was in there, and we were trying to blow it up. Then things are impossible to blow up.
Really?
And we had 100 pounds of C4 stacked in there. We were lobbing 2 or 3 rounds at them. They set the C4 off, nothing, so we gave up on trying to collapse it.
Really? You said you had 100 pounds of C4 going on that?
Yeah.
and that didn't work?
No. Didn't harm it a bit.
That is some sturdy rock.
Oh, yeah. They had their tunnels really, I mean, they probably felt safe in them. I see why.
Yeah, I bet. He's like, even the Americans can't blow this up. We're good.
Oh yeah.
Wow. So when you guys got there, Taliban was still fully in control of Afghanistan. Yep. So, oh man, that had to have been a mind job on you guys getting there, especially being 18, 19, 20 years old for most of y'all.
Oh yeah.
Going from our way of life to all of a sudden landing there, and it's a completely different world.
Yeah.
Like, and then having to go out after, Operation Red Wing goes down. And man, that was messed up. And then now you guys are out there trying to basically kind of what they did in Vietnam a little bit, crawling tunnels and trying to figure out what's going on. But you guys are doing the same thing in the mountains.
Yeah.
That could not have been easy.
Oh no, it's scary.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, lucky.
Yeah,
we got in contact one time and that was it.
Okay. So just one firefight while y'all were in Afghanistan. But then you said you also went to Iraq?
Yeah, so we did Afghanistan for 12 months. Before we go, there's some pretty funny stuff that we did in Afghanistan, though.
Oh, yeah?
We had a platoon leader. I can't remember, I'm not going to say his name, but this dude he was a fresh lieutenant who thought he knew everything. Well, we were out on mission, and a platoon sergeant, who I love this dude to death, put probably a 20-pound rock in his rucksack because dude was being an idiot. And about 2 days, he walks with this rock in his rucksack, wondering why his rock is so big. He finally sits down and goes through it and finds that big rock at the bottom of it.
Oh, the things we used to do.
Oh, yeah. That was pretty good. Especially with altitude, it's hard to breathe anyways. I bet that sucked.
Yeah, we were not supposed to talk about this really, but we used to do a lot of shenanigans with duct tape. And
I can see that.
Wrapping people up and hanging them from the angle. I mean, we didn't hang them, but wrap up their arms and their legs and, wrap it around the angle irons and leave them hanging for a couple hours while they were waiting for someone to show up and get them down.
Yeah, Afghanistan, we did, I want to say 10 months in Afghanistan. We came home and then we found out pretty soon that we were going to Iraq.
Oh, wow. So you didn't have much of a downtime.
Not a whole lot, no.
So you land in Iraq. Where'd you go there?
We went to Kuwait first. I can't remember what camp I was at. They named them what, Camp New York or Camp Pennsylvania. I don't know which one we were at, but we stayed in camp. We got there in December. I can't remember the exact date we crossed the border, but we all loaded up in trucks and we trucked all the way up through Iraq. I know it was we crossed the border, we got out, we stopped for a little bit, and then as we're pushing north, we were setting up FARP. We set up FARP Shell. It was a forward area refueling point for the Apaches that were going in and bombing Baghdad. Mm-hmm. We were out there for a couple of weeks. We had dug in. We didn't see anything there. We had Geraldo Rivera, the news anchor for Fox News, was with us. And we ended up having to kick him out of camp because he drew a picture of Iraq and then drew an X where we were.
Oh, how thoughtful of him.
Yeah. Like, come on, dude.
Yeah, he ruffled a lot of feathers. I'll leave it like that. and not just in y'all's case. So you establish a FARP in Iraq, and y'all didn't have any resistance at that point.
Not at that point. I remember, I don't know if it was the Apaches that were in front of us, softening everything up, but we were driving through one of the small villages, and there were some dead bodies that were burning on the side of the road. There were obvious signs that somebody was trying to attack us at some point, but the Apaches went ahead and cleared the route for us.
So was that your first experience dealing with after combat fatalities?
Yes.
Oh, wow. And so
it really lets you know that it's real. It's no longer a playtime.
Right. Now, just out of curiosity, were you a believer at this point?
I was. I got saved. I was 8 years old. I remember when I got saved. It was New Hope Baptist Church. I remember that feeling, that rush of Christ. It was something I don't think you can forget, is knowing you're saved by Christ and finding that at a young age. It's like, I can't explain it.
Yeah. I know what you mean. I think most of the people listening in know what you mean too. It's super cool feeling. Yeah. So that had to be hard though. I mean, like you're a believer at this point. but you're a believer that's in combat at the moment. And you know, these people are trying to kill you and you're trying to wrestle with that. Like, you know, we're not supposed to kill people. We're supposed to love on others, but these people are also trying to kill me and my friends, but I got to return fire. And then this happens. This is what you come across, and you're trying to wrestle with that. How did that go?
I gave up on God.
Oh, wow.
I walked away. I turned from him. Well, let's go back a few years. I think
Okay.
I got saved when I was young, but also went through some trauma as a child. I know when I was 5 or 6 years old, I was molested by a couple of my cousins, and then my dad had left. And then, so when I did get saved, you know, I was on that cloud for a while, and I started blaming God for a lot of stuff I was going through high school.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I joined the Army, and my faith was hardly hanging on, but when we went to war in Iraq, I lost it.
Yeah. So that's, you already had a lot to process, but now we're compounding it with combat.
Yeah.
Wow. So you're going through Iraq, you know, you're trying to get out there. How long was that tour?
12 months.
12 months. Wow. A full year in theater.
Yeah.
And that was your introduction, really.
Yeah, that deployment. So we picked up to move north from Fark Shell. We were starting to push toward Baghdad. And our first town we went to was Al Hilal. That was our first big firefight. So I remember pulling into this town. I think we were lead truck, actually. We were coming through the crowd. They was all yelling, "We love Bush. We love America." I'll never forget, there was an albino Iraqi that stood out to me. He's obviously albino. Everything was very pale and white. You could see him stand out in the crowd, but just the look on his face is like, he doesn't love us. He wants to kill us. I can see this right now.
Oh, wow.
So as we push down, you know, we're getting all this praise, but as we turn the corner, it's all gone. That's the eerie feeling. It goes from everybody loving you to nobody being around. You have all these houses and stuff, but everybody's gone.
Mm-hmm.
So we had your spidey senses. They're like, what's going on? So we continued to push to the town, and we got to this little compound. I know it had like a chain link fence around it. There was an intersection there. Our truck had stopped. So we had stopped. Our scouts had send back word that there might be some, I don't know who it was Syrians who ended up fighting Syrian mercenaries. They said there might be some enemy there. I can't remember what they said exactly. But so we were the lead truck. We got to that corner of that compound, and we dismounted. And there was a pre-dug fighting position that was there, I guess, from the first war.
Mm-hmm.
That they had already dug. So I put my gun team, I was a 240 gunner at the time. I put my gun team in that pre-dug fighting position, covering the entire compound of that corner. And about 10 feet in front of me was this bush. It was probably 10 foot tall. I don't know how to describe it, but we started hearing some rustling in the bush. Here comes this kid out from behind it wearing the black garb that they wore with his hands up yelling, "Sadiq, Sadiq."
What does that
As
mean?
he starts closer, I think friend.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember exactly, but he was yelling friend. They kept yelling, "Get back, get back." He never would get back. We found out why. There was another guy behind him with a grenade. So the guy pops out with a grenade and throws it at my gun team. We drop down in the hole. My platoon sergeant is in the hole with us, grabs our medic, pulls him in the hole. And then my AG gunner doesn't get down in time and gets hit by the grenade. And then all hell breaks loose. They had a 50 cal behind us that lit up the dude in the black garb. It looked like something from the Matrix. You saw the first round hit him, and it knocked him off his feet. And I guess he hit him again, and he spun him. And he died. And then everybody lit up on the guy that was behind the bush. And then we started taking fire from the first house in the compound and started taking fire from the other side of the road from behind us. So we found out at the end of that we were about to drive into an ambush that had 20-something RPGs lined up on the side of the road with guys ready to fire on us.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
So that was my first big firefight, and it was as close as you could get.
Yeah. I don't see how that doesn't mess with you.
Everything changed that day. It went from, I no longer saw enemy as people. They were
Mm-hmm.
just, I called them ants, like bugs. We've had to kill the bugs to get home. So I took that human part out of it. I
Yeah,
think that was the hardest part to get back once I got home.
I bet. So I'm assuming the rest of your time there was similar to that.
Oh yeah, yeah. We made it into Baghdad. We got a few more close quarter fights there. Went from Baghdad to where we go next, Talafar. We lost 2 guys in Talafar. We got hit with, I think it was 1,000 pound bomb and a car bomb. Dude pulled up to our Hescos, and thankfully our gunner shot him, so he didn't get through. But when he detonated, it blew all the windows out of the building and everything else. There was like 80-something Purple Hearts that coming from that one.
Mm.
I was sitting at that same talk in Talafar. I was in the backyard of it. We were on QRF for our company that day. I was laying in my rack, just kind of hanging, waiting to get called out. Well, there's a guy, I guess, in a couple of buildings next to us, decided to RPG us. He started shooting RPGs at us and hit our shower. Thankfully, nobody was in there. I remember jumping up, throwing on my gear and nothing but shorts and boots, and here we go after him.
Mm-hmm.
We spent, I can't remember how long we spent in Talafar, but it got pretty rough there because the crowds got real big, and then you get in the crowds and start throwing rocks at you, and then people start shooting at you, and you don't want to shoot the innocent people, but you got to return fire so you don't die. It was chaos.
So that's one thing I keep hearing over and over from a lot of my other veteran buddies is one of the hardest things to wrestle with while all of us were over there. Rules of engagement. That one, they kept changing all the time, but
Yeah.
two, you're stuck in these situations where the enemy is trying to shoot at you by whatever means necessary. But at the same time, they're using, well, what seemed or would seem to a normal person as innocent civilians all around them. They're kind of using them as human shields. So how do you return fire on someone who's shooting at you, but they're hiding behind a woman or a child who seems to be someone who just innocently got caught up in the situation? Like, that just seems like something you have to wrestle with. Like, how did you come to terms with that?
It was me or them. I wanted to come home. I wanted my guys to come home, so we did what we had to do in that situation.
Yeah. That's just, that's just one of those things. Like even today, as you know, we're getting news out of Israel and the Gaza Strip, you know, with the Israeli defense forces having to deal with. We're seeing a lot of this, and we're seeing a lot of repeated tactics from Hamas and Hezbollah, doing a lot of the same things that you guys experienced. And it's one of those things that, you know, you have your rules of engagement, not to shoot innocent people, but at the same time, are we just supposed to stand there and let them keep shooting at us?
Yeah, our ROE when we invaded was pretty much if it's out in the streets during this time and this time, they're enemies.
Mm-hmm.
So luckily, started going through that. There was no women and children or innocent people out in the streets, thankfully. But it's a couple weeks, I say probably a couple months into it, is when the ROE changed. That's when you had to identify the shooter, know where the shooter was at, make sure it was a shooter, stuff like that.
Yeah. And so that was, I'm sorry, Talafar?
Talafar, yeah.
Okay.
That was just I want to say northeast of Baghdad.
All
We
right.
went from Talafar, air assaulted from Talafar to Mosul.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure Mosul is a name that a lot of us would recognize. What was y'all's involvement there?
We were securing a bank. Why we didn't get attacked, I don't know, but I know the whole time we're at this bank, like we were feeling it. Everybody knew something was coming. Thankfully, we didn't get attacked, but it was an eerie feeling. We knew something was about to pop off, and it never did. Thankfully.
Yeah, thank God for that. What was the significance of this bank?
I have no clue.
They just said, go take it and hold it.
Yep, they had us guarding the bank. Was like, okay.
All right. Well, I mean, was there even any money in it at this point?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that might have been why.
Could have been.
So did you wrap up your time in Mosul, or did you keep moving north?
No, we moved from Mosul. We went to the Mosul Dam for a little while. Mosul Dam was nice though. It was, I think Saddam Hussein had built it. He built a little village there for, I think it was the Chinese and the Russians that came in and built the big dam that provides power for Iraq, Turkey, Iran, and Syria, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe wrong, but they built this town there and it had swimming pools and a bowling alley and a market. So we kind of got to enjoy that for a little while. We had 2 IED attempts, and that was always solved there, thankfully.
Mm-hmm. So you had this brief little oasis in the middle of the desert then. That sounds like a good time. So
houses and everything else. So
cool. So then did you keep pushing north?
We left from there, went back to main Mosul, and then our deployment was over with.
Okay. So I'm pretty sure that during that time that you went back down south, then, that was not a cakewalk or a vacation period.
No, well, we pretty much, when we got back, we were gearing up to head out. We were done.
Okay. So that was, you spent almost a year in Afghanistan, come home for a few short months, go over to Iraq for a year, and then you finally come back to Kentucky, I'm assuming. And
Yep.
Then what?
Then it's time to get out of the Army. ETS, then left.
Okay. No desire whatsoever to reenlist.
Nope, not after that second deployment.
I'd imagine not. So then what? I mean, you're out of the Army and off on your own.
Out of the Army, and really didn't know I was struggling with PTSD at the time. So between me and a buddy, we were young and dumb at the time. So we were downtown Nashville partying one night, and ended up partying all night. I don't know if we went to sleep or not, but me and my buddy get into a fight, and then we end up driving through downtown Nashville at 100 miles an hour through every red light for that adrenaline rush again.
Oh, wow.
For some reason, that was normal. Obviously, it wasn't. So I was struggling with PTSD before I knew I had PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got out of the Army, of course, when you're getting out, our leadership told us to don't tell, mental health or, the physical part, everything's good, or they'll make you stay in longer. So just tell them you're perfectly fine and get out. So that's what we did.
Wow. So that part's new to me. Because granted, when I was getting out, this was 10 years after you, and they were, everything that I heard getting out is everyone told us to document everything, document. Make sure you tell them every little thing. But for you, like it sounds like the complete opposite. They're saying hold it all in.
Yeah.
Like how did that go? Like what? It just blows my mind. They just straight up don't care.
Kind of how it felt the whole time, except my platoon sergeant, that dude is, but our battalion commander at the time, our first sergeant, is just didn't feel like they really cared a whole lot about the soldiers, period.
Mm-hmm. So they're telling you to just bottle it down and stuff it down and
suck it up.
Don't ever deal with it.
Yep.
Wow.
Well, the infantry mindset, I think, at the time of the infantry was, just to do what you had to do. You're alive. You're fine. Don't worry about it.
Except that you can't.
Yeah, exactly. You try to bottle it up as long as you can, but it's like shaking a Coke bottle that's going to bust at some point.
Yeah, exactly. So you get out and you're trying to stuff it down, trying not to deal with it, but then you're doing things like this where you're speeding through downtown Nashville, blowing every red light. I'm assuming y'all were caught?
No.
Oh, wow.
No.
But you're doing stuff like this just to bring back that rush that you were so used to from back in Iraq, being in that fight or flight, situation. and you're just trying to bring that back to seem. I mean, this is one thing that I've had to explain to my civilian friends is that when we come back to normal civilization, there is no you're about to lose your life situation that's constant. And so when you get used to that, being in combat theater for so long, like you come back to normal civilian life, that environment isn't there anymore. But when you're in that environment, you know what to do. You know how to respond. It's a reflex, but that's not there anymore. And we don't know how to reintegrate back into society. We don't have anybody walking us through that. So we start doing these dumb things to bring back that feeling, that kickstart that adrenaline, in our bodies, so that we have some semblance of normalcy to us. But it's not normal.
No. And then, you felt safe in them moments. For some reason, you feel like you're in control. I don't know why.
Right.
But when I was high intense moments, I felt like I knew what to do. I knew how to operate. I knew how to function. I felt safe. But when it was a lull and boring, I felt like somebody was plotting.
Mm-hmm. Well, but even in those moments, you also have the option of returning fire, and you have some semblance of control, right?
Yeah.
If you tick around, then that's it. At least you were able to fight back up until that point.
Yeah.
There's a lot of the rationale in the back of our heads, but now you don't.
Yeah. Now you can't fight back.
Right. Not allowed to.
Nope.
And so that's something you had to wrestle with too, huh?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Traffic was one of the worst things. Like, we're in Iraq, we're driving through. If there's vehicles that are threats to us, we can shoot a warning shot, run them off the road, whatever the ROE called for at the time. When you get in the roads back home and you feel threatened and you kind of go back to that moment, you can't react that way. So I dealt with road rage for a long time.
Mm-hmm. And what did that look like for you?
I got out of it, thank God, like 3 or 4 years ago. I pulled over. This lady had pulled out in front of me, and I was raging at her. And she pulled over, and I pulled over, and I didn't know it was a female. And I got out, and she was there, and then I apologized to her, and I realized I could have just got shot over nothing. So a lot of situations that could have been bad. That luckily nothing bad did happen. I kept pulled over a lot, and nobody shot me. So I'm thankful for that.
Yeah. So you're back in America, mostly safe. I mean, we know how things have gone in the last few years. So you're back and you're dealing with well, you're not really dealing with everything. You're trying to cope as best as you can. What was that looking like? Like what did you do during that time before you really came back to Christ? How were you trying to, wrestle with everything that happened?
I was isolating. I was self-medicating with marijuana. I was, doing risky things.
What do you mean by that? I mean, if you don't mind sharing.
Yeah, I guess, just going out. Well, every weekend we'd go out to the bar and get into a fight.
Mm-hmm.
That was our thing for a long time. We'd go out every weekend just to get into a fight.
Oh, wow. Just to bring back that rush.
Yeah. It was me and a couple of buddies they were not in the military. This is buddies I grew up with. We'd go out every weekend ready to get into a fight.
Wow. And so that was your self-medicating, was the drinking, fighting, marijuana, stuff like that.
Yeah, avoiding it. Like we have nightmares or something for a couple weeks, and you just wake up and smoke a joint.
Yeah.
So medicate, and then I started getting. When was it? So I was in college. While I was in college, after I ended up going to college, and I was able to keep myself busy enough, plus all that other stuff, to keep my mind off of it for the most part until 2006. I think it had taken a toll on me, and I'd been having real bad nightmares about like dissociative parts, a lot of anger, a lot of outbursts, a lot of rage. In 2000, finally, I went to the doctor. They prescribed me some medications and some Klonopin. Well, a few weeks after that, I think there was 20-something Klonopin left. I took a bottle of Klonopin and a 6-pack of beer and laid down.
Mm-hmm. And what were you hoping to achieve from that?
Oh, I was hoping to die. I was hoping I wasn't going to wake up the next day.
Yeah. I mean, so you just thought that was a better way out at the time?
I thought it was the only way out at the time.
Wow. So then what? I mean, you did this. I'm assuming the next morning you were found, or you woke up.
Probably the next night is about 20 hours later. I woke up.
Oh, wow.
Woke up as I wasn't dead. Thank God I was alive. And just continued living the way I was. I still didn't change anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I struggled like that until 2012. That's when I was on the verge of running my car into a pillar off the interstate, and I pulled over and called 911 because I couldn't control it. They took me to the VA hospital in Birmingham. That's when I went to my first VA. I was in my first VA acute psychiatric ward.
Mm-hmm.
Spent 2 weeks in that. Yeah.
2 weeks. Wow. What did that look like?
The psych ward. I mean, they medicate you, they monitor you. You talk to people. There's really not a whole lot you can do.
Wow. And you're just kind of monitored the whole time, like no real privacy.
No, they're checking on you every 15 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
You're trying to push something to give yourself something to do physically, but
yeah. I mean, but it's not like they're not giving any privacy just to punish you, but it's more they just want to keep checking on you to make sure you're still doing all right.
Yeah.
So there's no malice there. It's just
no.
Yeah.
No.
Wow. So that was your second attempt. So you go through VA acute treatment in Birmingham, and that was in 2012?
Yeah, 2012.
Okay. So then what?
Then I got out of that and went to a VA PTSD program for 3 months.
Okay.
That was a little more freedom. I mean, you weren't on lockdown like you were in acute psych, but you're still doing counseling sessions. You were doing groups. They had a gym in there. You could go to the gym.
That's good.
And I started prolonged exposure there. So I guess at the time, the VA was big on pushing prolonged exposure, saying it had an 80% success rate. I think it does work for some people. Don't get me wrong, but
so
like I went
prolonged exposure. What's that?
Prolonged exposure, where you relive a traumatic event over and over again until you become, I guess, desensitized to it.
Mm-hmm.
All I did was push it down deeper, and when I got out of that program and I was triggered, it was 10 times worse.
Oh wow!
So I got out. I finished the program. Got out. I was doing 2 sessions a week of prolonged exposure because you'd walk through the trauma with the doctor, and then you'd record it and have to walk through it again by yourself later that evening, and then put down your sub score, and then come back the next day or the day later and do it again. You did it for however long the doctor seemed fit.
Mm-hmm. So did that seem to help?
At the time when I'm in the program, yes.
Okay.
As soon as I got out and got, the new of being out of the program, getting back to the normal everyday life and got triggered, it was 10 times worse.
Wow.
So before, if I'd get triggered, I could at least maybe ground myself.
Uh-huh.
A few times of that, and then it got really bad. This time, as soon as I was triggered, it was bad. I'd go into isolation. I wouldn't leave the house for days. It was pretty bad.
Dang. So, I mean, you're stuck in your house, like you're like locking yourself in your room, not letting anybody in. Were you eating?
I was eating, yes, but I mean, I was just sitting there wasting my life pretty much.
Wow.
I didn't want to go out, people. I didn't want to be around people. I didn't want to be around anything that trigger me. So that was my way to avoid.
And were you living with your family at the time, or?
No, I was living by myself at the time.
Okay. So that didn't help either.
No.
Wow. So you're in Birmingham. You do this VA treatment. You get out. Nothing's really better. then what?
I continued to work. I was working at Children's Hospital of Birmingham in the cardiovascular intensive care unit as a respiratory therapist. And I would go to work, come home, go to sleep, go to work, come home, go to sleep. That was my life.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Continued to avoid everything. Still smoking weed. I don't know how I kept jobs smoking weed like that.
Yeah, because I'm sure at a hospital, especially at a children's hospital, I'm assuming they test you periodically.
They never tested us periodically, but you did a pre-employment test.
And it didn't show up in that?
No, I figured out a way to beat them.
As most do.
Yeah.
I think they even have jokes about that when you go through recruiting.
Yeah.
Okay. So, wow. You've done 2 tours, one to Afghanistan, one to Iraq. You experienced all this combat, brought back all kinds of emotional damage, not just from, what you experienced overseas, but really even as a child. You're trying to deal with all of this mushed together deep down inside of you. You've run away from God, and you've done 2 treatments with both of them with the VA, right?
Yeah.
The first time and the second time.
Yeah.
Looking for fights, drinking, smoking, all kinds of stuff just to get the adrenaline going, and battling through isolation, battling through, overindulgence of self-medication, and things are not going well. And that sounds like a story that a lot of our veterans are facing. When they come home, they don't know how to cope. They don't know how to deal, and they just continue to get wrapped up in different programs, different counseling cycles and stuff like that. And they're not finding a lot of success rate, unfortunately. So from that, you're not seeing a lot of success. You're not seeing the hope on the horizon. And I think that is a good point for us to wrap it up for today. And then we'll come back and finish up next week. And hopefully, we'll get into when you were able to find hope and find help and get seen through to the other side. Right. So thanks for sitting down with us for today. And I'm looking forward to our next discussion. For everybody else, thanks for tuning in today. Don't forget to find us on Facebook, look online, like us. If you know of any veterans, if you're a veteran yourself and you want to tell your story, please reach out and let us know. We'd love to sit down and talk with you, let you tell your story, and hopefully encourage another veteran that's going through the same thing. Kenny, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me, John.
Yeah, indeed. Looking forward to our next discussion, and see you guys next week.